The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
We are sorry to announce that a fighter for the people of Massachusetts, a long-standing advocate for lower taxes and the people's right, Barbara Anderson of Marblehead, Massachusetts, passed away on Saturday in her long battle with leukemia. Barbara Anderson is very well known and very well remembered for her actions to bring Prop 2.5 to enlightenment and to existence within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to save the people from unlimited taxation. Barbara Anderson was a founder of the Coalition for Limited Taxation and has worked long and hard throughout her life. She was also an advocate for patient-assisted suicide. She's dealt with pain for many years in her life, and she was a true patriot for Massachusetts. And our thoughts and condolences go out to Chip Ford, who was her longtime companion, and members of her family.
Yes, CJ, she was a fighter against taxes, and she also, reading her last column here, she liked ice cream sodas. I love ice cream sodas. No,
yeah.
She was a great, sometimes we didn't agree, and as but she was always a fighter, and she was always fighting against taxes. And it's a great loss, not only to the Commonwealth but to the nation at large. She defined what it's like to be involved in politics, and her family has my sincere condolences. She was a force of nature, and she fought the fight regardless of what kind of flack she took. She fought the fight. So it is a great loss.
It is. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ. A little backwards today.
Yeah, we're backwards today, and I'm Chip, and I don't think we're live right now.
No, we're having a problem on the outside of the studios. We have no control over it today. The gremlins have infested the network.
Isn't that great? For once, it's not us.
Yeah, for once, it's not us. But we're going to keep going. This show will be re-aired at 5 o'clock, if not sooner. And it will be online, hopefully by 1 p.m. I had to bring up Barbara Anderson because, she fought for a long time for many issues. And,
absolutely. And she defines one of my issue is, so she's a great example of that.
She was a lone fighter for the longest time, and she didn't give up. But this should say to the people of Fall River, guess what? You can do it too. So don't let her death be in vain or forgotten. Remember everything she's accomplished and bring it to fruition here in Fall River. Because guess what I found out today, Chip?
Wow.
You know how we have a 29% sewage fee increase and stormwater fee increase?
Yeah.
Somebody overlooked something. With the 8% water cost increase, that brings us up to a grand total of, drumroll please, 35% increase in your water and sewer bill because somebody didn't do the job.
Yeah, here we go again, and that's the thing. But getting back to that, I know you received a phone call on our tip line.
Yeah, I spoke about it briefly in the weekend flush. I guess the constipation level is getting pretty high in Fall River because the Miralax isn't working on these people. But somebody called, and our tip line is anonymous, so don't think we know who you are because we don't.
Although we wish we did.
And they said that, you keep calling out Linda Pereira, yet you have given her money on numerous occasions for her political campaign. And you know, Chip, you and I both know that we get most of our information during the election season from where?
From campaign funds. But let me, and he specifically mentioned me.
Yes, he did, and that's why I'm turning this over to you.
So, okay, yeah, you're right, I did. But the problem is, look when I did it. You see, that's the problem with people. See, Barbara Anderson is a great example of a political activist. She doesn't personalize anything. She was against Republicans, Democrats, independents, anybody who was going to unnecessarily raise taxes in the state of Massachusetts. Samuel Gompers, one of the founders of the union movement, said very clearly, the power of the people and unions rests in its ability to elect its friends and defeat its enemies. I don't know, you want me to explain. I don't think I can explain. I think it's a matter of political philosophy. We've been doing this show now for over 2 years, and I don't know
Actually,
how
we're
many
coming
times.
up on 4.
4?
4.
Well, time flies when you're having fun. We're having a lot of fun. But I don't know how many times I have said that politics is not personal, and it's not personal with me. You're right. I did call out Linda Pereira, and I'm going to keep calling her out like I'm calling out Jaisal Correa, who, by the way, I gave him money because I wanted to get rid of Sam Sutter. Because that's the way I do it. I pick a side. And sometimes I'll support people if they're on my side. But if the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah, you're right. And I think the word you used was you sprinkled, your name is sprinkled, right? Yeah, it's sprinkled, but very lightly. If you check how many campaign contributions I've given over the years, not that many. I've known Linda for almost 30 years. See how many times I went. But if you remember, if you look at the dates, the last function I went to was when she said she wouldn't support a Flanagan budget if she was here. She was not there at the time due to illness. She was being an independent voice. And then what did she do when her man Sutter got in? And we did brand her and the other two, Sam sellouts. She's been a political insider and a rubber stamp ever since. And I'm going to call her out on it. And she's the one that continues to give us reason, because she continues to go on a radio and tries to justify positions. But let me make this perfectly clear. It's not personal with me. And it's probably personal with you. Because I don't know what philosophy you have that you're supposed to, support a candidate for their entire life. Why? I don't. To me, supporting a political candidate is based on their performance. I don't think Linda's a bad person. I think she's a pretty good person. I know personally that she was very involved with the people, that her clients, when she worked for welfare. She's very involved with her clients in the job she has now at the DA's office. She cares about the homeless. She's not a bad person. But that doesn't mean she's doing her job. Yeah, I've given money. Actually, the 2 times I gave the most money were to people that I really never supported. But they were running against somebody who I wanted out. I was involved in Kathy Ann Viveris's campaign when she ran against Flanagan because I wanted Flanagan out of there. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The same thing with Jaisal Correa. I didn't know Jaisal that well, never went to anything, but I wanted Sam Sutter out. And I like Sam, by the way. Sam and I have great conversations about things. He's a tennis player. I played tennis. My son was a very good tennis player. I like Sam as an individual. We've had some spirited debates. But unlike you, I only support people who are doing their job. See, I'm dealing with Linda Pereira about the way she's doing her job. I don't condemn. You never hear me talk about her husband, her family, like some of these nimrods on Facebook and these anonymous people do on phones when they condemn people's characters and calling them names. I'm talking about her performance and her job. I don't know about you, and I've said this a million times on this show. Why do we elect politicians based on friendships and the fact they got a street light, and then we complain that the city's going to hell? Well, they're going to hell because of the positions they're taking. And I support people when they're behind an issue that I'm supporting. And if they're not doing their job, I no longer support them. When I buy a ticket to Linda's time, when she's voting for budgets that you see me condemn, then you can talk to me. I told Sam Sutter at a meeting right after he got elected that he wasn't doing a good job, and I didn't support Sam Sutter. I normally pick a side, but in the recall election, I gave to no one. I didn't endorse any candidate because I said my primary function in being involved in a recall was to get Will Flanagan out. I was not going to have someone turn around and say, well, you only got involved in the recall to get your candidate to become mayor. I let that play out. But normally in elections, I pick a side because I think you have to. Some people don't. Some people want to lay low. But I'm going to tell you something. I don't go to restaurants if they serve bad food. If I go to a restaurant and they get great food, I continue to frequent it. If the food all of a sudden takes a turn for the worse, I might go a second time to see if it was an aberration, but then I stop frequenting it. I don't take my car to people who can't fix it. And I don't support politicians who are not doing the job for the best interest of the city of Fall River. I've supported a lot of politicians. I've gone to a lot of times. And I disagree with politicians in many cases. Just because I disagree with a particular position does not mean I don't support him. Eric Poulin and Eric's a close friend of mine. We used to discuss politics all the time, as I did with Linda, and so did CJ. She used to call us all the time. She no longer calls. She doesn't call or send us flowers anymore. But, you know, I understand that. It's politics. But she still asks how I am when she runs into my son. But the fact is, so it's not a personal issue. It's about her performance. Joe Camaro and I go to Joe Camara's times. If you look, it's sprinkled a little bit. I occasionally go to Joe Camara's because, number one, I like that Portuguese buffet at the Barra Alta. So I go to his time when he has it there. But Joe and I are friends. And I'm not afraid to say that. We disagree on a lot of issues. You know, we are adamantly on the opposite sides of casino gambling. We were on the opposite side of the contract chief. I was proven right because they found out that when you make contract chiefs, that you get politics involved. That's why I don't think any department head should be a contract chief. That's the reason that people go in front of the city council and lie to the people, because they're worried about getting their contract renewed. So that's a political issue. Do I dislike Joe? No. I stopped supporting candidates when they stopped being independent voices. Joe Camara has taken positions contrary to the mass. When people begin to just be puppets, rubber stamps, and political insiders, my support ends. Period. So I don't forfeit my right to change my mind. The 70% of the people that voted for Will Flanagan then flipped and voted him out by 70%. Do they need to explain? No, they were not happy with his performance. I'm not happy with Linda Pereira's performance, and every time she goes on the air and says, I did it because of this and that, and I think she's wrong, we're going to call her out on it. Otherwise, if she just didn't go on the radio to try to justify her position, well, okay, she's maintained the dialogue. And the fact is that if we think a vote is wrong, it's wrong. I don't believe she's an independent voice any longer. I don't believe that she's doing her job. And anytime somebody stops doing something in the best interest of the city of Fall River, I have a problem. I have a problem with it, and I have the right, by the way, I have the right to withdraw my support. As I said, I've supported candidates, and ironically enough, the two candidates, I don't spend a lot of money, but the two elections I probably spent the most on was to try to get mayors out, because I think the mayor is the most important seat. I mean, City council as well, you're 1 of 9, but you can still stand up as an independent voice. You can't do much. But a mayor determines the direction of the city of Fall River. And I told Jazel Correa, before he was elected, I had numerous meetings, and I told him, I said, if, we need to make a reorganization of the city, we need to, excuse me because I'm looking down, I'm looking for something. I told him that he had to do something reorganized, truly reorganized, not give all his friends jobs, and if not, we were going to be on him. And actually, one of his supporters on the night he was elected said, "You guys are not going to be jumping all over him." I said, "Well, if he does what we feel is right, we'll give him kudos. If he doesn't, we're going to be on him." So guess what? You want to track my finances? And reaware, when you're tracking the finances, there's another Robert Camara that he thought I was that lived in Tiverton and was a chiropractor with the same name. So, it may be his check, but the fact is I did go to a few Linda's times, and I've gone to, a few, but I supported Kathy Ann Viveris, who now I would never support again because she sold herself away for a pension, and I supported. And I supported Jazel because even though I like Sam Sutter, I think I felt he was taking the city in the wrong direction. So you want to personalize it, that's fine. But you know something? Politics is politics, personal is personal. You want to inquire? You want me to explain? I just told you the way it was. I didn't explain. That's the way it is. If you don't like the way I do things, tough, you know what. But you know something? You had to end it with a nice little, venomous personal attack. So if you want to, talk about politics, we'll talk about politics, not personal. You want to make it personal, be man enough to do it face to face. Don't act like an 11-year-old girl in a schoolyard, or better yet, like a female dog. Because you know what they call a female dog, so stop acting like one. You got something to say to me? I'm not afraid to say it. I say it to the camera. I say it in front of the city council. I say it to the candidates. So you want to talk to me and you want to make it personal? Come on, I'll make it personal. And I'm going to close with one thing. And I talked about this before. Actually, I haven't read this quote in a long time, but talked about myths. This is what John F. Kennedy said at the commencement address in Yale University on June 11th in 1962. The great enemy of the truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth. Sound familiar? The myth. Persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. Too often we hold fast to the cliches of our forebears. We subject all facts to a prefabricated set of interpretations. We enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. And what do we always tell you people? Think, check. I'm not an indentured servant. I don't support any politician who I think is not working in the best interest of Fall River. And with that, that's the end of it. If you want to make it personal, you come and see me. Okay, CJ? I don't know. You're still in there.
And we're going to go play fireman.
Oh, God. Now you're going to ruin my day even more. Go ahead.
As many people are aware, on Sunday, they had Fire 101 Academy up at the Fire Training Center. And I went to Jason Burns before it started, and he said, and I will quote him, "It's just another tool." When I looked at these city councilors from Fall River and New Bedford getting into gear, and of course Richard Cabaceres, who served on our fire department for a brief period of time wearing his original gear with Cabaceres on the back, looked as proud as a peacock, I started to laugh. And I was, Jazel walks by and I said, "I really don't think that fits you, Jazel." And he goes, And this was meant to teach them what firemen go through every day. And you know what? 16,000 16,000 or 16 million or whatever the BTUs was on a stack of straw isn't what is generated by a 42-pound chair, which they made very clear. And they also made very clear, which I took a great pleasure, when they talked about the NFPA 1710 standard.
You mean the one that doesn't exist?
The one that doesn't exist, right. And they said that, we're supposed to have 4 firemen on the truck. And that's if you have a single-family, 2,000 square foot dwelling with, they missed the no basement, but you and I both know there's no basement, which there are none in Fall River. And the chief from New Bedford said, and I don't know how many of you have here, but we don't have any. We've got all triple deckers 10 feet apart in New Bedford. But again, that doesn't exist. So over the weekend, in my weekend flush, I put very clearly, I said, every year you people say you support our fire department, our public safety, yet every year you cut their budget. That's really talking out of both sides of your face. Or is it just my interpretation? I don't know.
No, it's not your interpretation.
Oh, okay. I wanted to be sure of that because maybe I was delusional.
Yeah. No, you're not. And let me say, I understand that's their new marketing strategy.
Right.
The IAFF and the PFFM think that this is a good tool. As I said, they're running it. It's fine. I disagree with it. I think, the way that you make firefighting a realistic thing is using the stat that almost historically firefighting has been the most dangerous profession in the United States. It's either number 1 or in the top 3 and has been for years and years and years.
Not that you would know.
And the fact is that we know that we've lost firefighters in the line of duty, a lot of them, and the fact is that I went to 5 funerals while I was on the job, line of duty deaths. But the fact is, with all due respect to what they did, you don't have hot dogs and hamburgers at the end of playing firemans, not firefighter. Because I'm going to tell you something. You talk to any firefighter that's been in a real fire, they will tell you that no training simulation can ever duplicate what you see in a real fire. Not being in a cement building, being in a building you've never been in before, having floors that are subject to collapse, ceilings that can come down, roofs that can cave in, and sometimes being so deep into that building you may not be able to get out, even if you try. The hazards of the profession, you can't duplicate. You can train them to begin to accept the fact that there's going to be heat, there's going to be danger, but any firefighter that tells you that training was even close to their first really good working fire hasn't been to a really good working fire. And the fact is, they can think this is a good training tool. I personally think that it actually is, it detracts from the appreciation of how truly difficult it is. We all know it's a very physical job. It's a very dangerous job. And having somebody pretend that they're doing it, it's just not the same. It's just like when you're in the military, you go to basic training and you crawl under some barbed wire with them shooting a 50 caliber machine gun over the top of your head. And they say this simulates it. It's not the same as somebody trying to really shoot you. And the fact is that, they think it's a marketing tool. It's, then they can all come out and say, wow, that was tough. Wow, it was really hot in there. Look at me. I put on a turnout gear. And you know something, CJ? You were 100% right. The fact is, what did it accomplish? Nothing.
Well,
because they still use the firefighters and the police officers as shields at budget time, and they have absolutely they don't care about the job. The fact that I gave Sam Sutter 150 pages saying why district chiefs should be district chiefs' aides are part of a coherent and cogent incident command system. Their positions are invaluable to a chief officer. They still did it. And I gave them an article that said the reason it's about money. And I'm going to remind everybody, because you won't remember this. Most of you weren't born. But in 1972, when Frank Candeas, the man at the Candeas station on Plymouth Avenue was named after, died in a fire wearing a 15-minute air tank with no warning bell. He died because the city would not pay for warning bells. It was too expensive. And he died. And they still didn't put the warning bells in. And then somebody else died outside of Boston without a bell, and then the state mandated it. And the only reason they put the bells on the tanks was because it was a state mandate. And anybody tells me that a politician really gives a damn about firefighters, I'll tell you they're full of crap, because I lived it.
But you know, Chip, it's okay because the fire department has administered 700 doses of Narcan so far this year. And guess what? That's more important. That's more important. And one of the drug advocates in the city, who was a nudge to us for the longest time, turned around and made some commentary on my story, the Weekend Flush, about it. And people jumped on him about it. I jumped on him about it. Because guess what? A firefighter came back and said, just this week alone, the fire department, not EMS, the fire department administered 5 doses of Narcan. The fire department. And you know what his response to that was? Well, maybe we need more EMS personnel. No, maybe we need to stop providing a new norm. Maybe we need to stop providing all this Narcan. This is just ridiculous. But my biggest complaint on this whole thing is, last year they did this and it failed. They've done it again this year and it's probably going to fail again. And it minimizes it. The best story that came out of that for me was the firefighter who a couple of years ago got burned. He jumped out of the building. It was on fire. Jumped out of the second story. He and his partner were both burned. And he developed cancer from the fire because the city didn't want to pay $8,000 to $12,000 for a gear washer, which would have taken the carcinogenics off the uniforms, off the equipment. But instead, they're willing to pay $30,000 for cancer treatment or to have a kidney removed. Are you serious? Is that how stupid our city government is? This infuriated me. It nauseated me. We'll spend money, and he said very clearly, he says, and this is why our health care is off the charts, because you won't take $12,000 and buy something to prevent it. You'll instead pay $30,000 to just cut somebody up.
Well, you know, that's because that's the way it is. It's always about the bottom line with cities. It's always about money. And they pretend to care, and they march in the processions, the funerals, but I've seen it. As I said, I've seen it, I've lived it. I tried to lobby for new equipment, tried to lobby for new, and I've seen the city delay and delay and delay, and then they say they truly care, and they don't. The fact is, it's all about money. All about, they cut fire departments, they all the time, and they always threaten to cut them if they don't cut them. So there you go. If you want to convince me, and as I said, we get back to the original thing. I only support people who support us. When I was the president of the fire union, we did the same thing. We bought tickets.
Yep.
To only people who supported us. And when they stopped supporting us, we stopped supporting them. So again, there's a second explanation for you that want an explanation. It's really simple. So it's just like you and I, CJ. We go to a restaurant, we get shitty food, we don't go back.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you Wednesday. And remember, there's nothing you can't accomplish if you don't try. Barbara Anderson did it. Rest in peace, Barbara. Thank you for everything you did for us.
And keep fighting and stay angry like Barbara did.